Are you thinking about visiting Los Cabos and considering the Grand Decameron Los Cabos? I stayed here for 10 nights, and in this video I'll break down what's great, what's not, and who this place is really for. We'll cover the room, food, pools, gym, nearby excursions, everything you need to know before you book. I'll start with what brought me here specifically. I'm pretty value oriented when it comes to travel. I like good deals more than luxury, and I had some Wyndham points I wanted to use. I'd also never stayed at an all-inclusive before, and my fiance and I had been wanting to explore more of Mexico. The reviews were mixed, the price point was low, and that's usually where I'm most comfortable when I travel, so it felt like a great place to try an all-inclusive for a first time. Now with that context, let's talk about the overall vibe and layout of the resort. Layout-wise, this is a fairly compact and easy to navigate resort. When you first arrive, you walk into a large open-air atrium, and the check-in desk is immediately on your left. You'll get checked in and be given a welcome drink. It's called the conga. It's one of their non-alcoholic drink options, and it was honestly really good. From there, the resort extends outward in a kind of V shape, and you'll be shown to a room either on the left side or the right side of that V. The buildings are only 3 or 4 floors tall. There are ground floor rooms where you can enter directly from the courtyard, but personally that would not be my preference. There are stairs connecting the main levels, but there's only one elevator, so if you need to use that, that could be a big downside. Once you're settled and start walking around, you realize the resort is compact, but in a good way. From the lobby, if you head to the right and go down the first set of stairs, you're right next to the main buffet and the main entrance to the central courtyard, which leads directly to the pools and beach. The courtyard itself is full of palm trees and natural light, and including the pool area and the beach, the whole space felt really peaceful during the day. Just from a layout perspective, everything feels very intentional and well contained. With this, first impressions were great. I was worried about things like whether or not our room would have a balcony, if the view would be bad, or if the courtyard and pools would feel too crowded, and none of these ended up being issues. From our first 30 minutes to an hour there, we really had nothing to complain about. Now let's dig into the room. We booked a standard 1 king bedroom, and that's exactly what we got. One thing worth mentioning here, I do have top tier Wyndham status, and I also let the resort know ahead of time that this trip was to celebrate our engagement. That said, we didn't receive a room upgrade, a welcome amenity, or any recognition of either of those things. That wasn't a deal breaker for us, and I wasn't expecting anything huge, but I do think it's useful to know going in, especially if you're booking with status or for a special occasion. Our room was 1405, and it felt like the 3rd floor, but I think it was technically the 4th floor due to the sloping layout of the property. Either way, for our section of the hotel, we were on the top floor, which I personally think is better than the floors below. To my knowledge, every standard room faces the courtyard and pool, unless you've booked an ocean view room, which unsurprisingly faces the ocean. Our room was one of the furthest from the beach and pools, but that also made it one of the closest to the buffet, which is essentially at the base of the V. When we first walked into our room, I was happy, but I wasn't blown away, which completely matched my expectations. The room was clean, it had good natural lighting, and it felt how I hoped it would. It had a king bed, a sofa, a small coffee table, a mini fridge, a coffee maker, and a TV. Notably, there was no microwave, which I'd normally prefer to have, but given the all-inclusive nature of the resort, it wasn't a major issue. The balcony was one of the highlights for us. It was peaceful, it had 2 chairs and a roof made of natural materials that gave it a really nice feel. One thing to know though is that balconies on each floor are connected via open air windows in the wall or little fences on the side, so your neighbors could get onto your balcony. So definitely make sure you keep your balcony door locked when you're away. If you're on your balcony and standing near the railing and your neighbors are sitting on their balcony, you'll be within about 15 feet of each other and you'll definitely be able to see one another. Our neighbors weren't very balcony active, so this wasn't a big issue for us, but if they were, this would have been a much bigger negative. The bed itself was very comfortable. We both slept well and really liked the king bed. The air conditioning also worked extremely well. It cooled the room really quickly. The soundproofing between rooms was solid, but when events were happening in the courtyard or pool area, the sound definitely came in through the balcony doors. Things like Mexican bingo or nighttime shows were noticeable, usually until 10:15 or 10:30 at night. If you like going to bed earlier than that, I'd recommend bringing a noise machine or maybe some earplugs. There's also construction happening at a neighboring property during the day, but personally I didn't find that noise very disruptive. The bathroom was the biggest negative for us. The layout was a bit strange. The shower and toilet shared a single door in a weird setup. When we tried to close the shower door with it, it would slowly open back up a couple of inches, and that would cause water to spill out in the toilet area while we were taking showers, and it would soak the bath mat. There is a drain in that area which helped, but it really wasn't ideal. On top of that, every couple of days for several hours at a time, a strong sewage smell would come up from the bathroom drains and make its way into the main room. That was easily the most unpleasant issue we experienced, but also one morning there was low water pressure, which caused the shower to shut off unless you wedged something underneath the handle in a specific way. Toilet paper isn't meant to be flushed here and should be placed in the bin next to the toilet. That's very common in some countries, but it is worth knowing. If you get your room serviced daily or almost daily, this is not a problem. Also, the shampoo and conditioner provided were honestly some of the worst I've ever used, so I'd highly recommend bringing your own. There were not many outlets, especially near the bed, and this is something that the hotel should fix. We brought an extension cord, which helped a lot, but this isn't ideal, especially for the average traveler. There's also no desk in the room, just a couch and a coffee table, so if you plan to work, don't expect a proper workspace. We used the balcony a lot because it was genuinely lovely and peaceful, and it ended up being a nice place to get some of our work done. But there were birds nesting in the natural balcony roof, which meant some noise, some twigs, and some bird droppings on one side of the balcony. Housekeeping does include balcony cleaning, but since we were usually in the room when they came by, and we would go hide on the balcony while they cleaned, they'd often skip the balcony so as to not disturb us. Speaking of housekeeping, our cleaning lady was absolutely wonderful. The hotel cleans rooms every other day by default for sustainability, but you can flip your do not disturb sign around and request service any day that you want. The floors in the room are tile, so if you bring sand up from the beach, the room can start to feel dirty pretty quickly on bare feet. Lastly, I have to talk about the Wi-Fi. This was another big negative for us overall. On our phones, we were getting around 1.5 up and down, which is barely usable for anything aside from texting. On our laptops, speeds were closer to 30 up and 30 down, which was just barely enough for video calls and streaming. Some days it worked fine, other days it took a lot of effort to get everything functioning smoothly. This is something the hotel definitely needs to improve on. They should be giving closer to 30 up and 30 down for phones and 50 up and 50 down for computers. That should be about the minimum of what a hotel is offering. Unfortunately, that's not often the case. So overall, what did I think of the room? I'd say it was good. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. Over 10 nights, a few things did start to annoy me, especially the bathroom issues and the occasional sewage smell, but nothing ruined the stay. For roughly 125 USD per night at an all-inclusive, I do think we got the right value out of the room. And also, one last shout out to the housekeeping staff. They really made the experience better, and also they were the friendliest staff that we met at the hotel. Next, let's talk about the food and drinks. Food was more important to me, so I'm going to tackle that first. There were only 2 places to get food on the property: the main buffet area, which is open breakfast, lunch, and dinner with generous hours, and the Luna restaurant near the beach and pools, which requires reservations for dinner and doubles as the snack bar during the day and night. Let's start with the Luna. We made one dinner reservation there. We reserved the morning of, and we got dressed up expecting it to be at least marginally better than the buffet. It wasn't. The food was honestly just bad. It made us feel a little silly for dressing up. It felt like we were pretending to go somewhere nice, but the food quality did not match the setting at all. One of the soups genuinely looked like it had a ketchup base. We didn't go back there for dinner again, but for the sake of this review, I tried the snack bar once before we left, and that was even worse. I ordered chicken nuggets and fries because those are impossible to mess up. The fries were fine, but I couldn't even finish the chicken nuggets. The inside was gray like a cookies and cream milkshake, and the taste matched the gray color. I was really hungry and I still couldn't eat them. So personally, I would skip the Luna and the snack bar entirely. Now, onto the good part, the buffet. We had a great experience at the buffet. After 10 days, we definitely started to feel tired of it, but overall there was solid variety, especially in the more involved dinner dishes. For each meal, there were usually 3 to 4 out of 8 to 10 items that I was happy to load my plate with. We generally ate pretty healthy while we were there, which I think helped us not get sick of it. Eating a bowl of fresh fruit for breakfast is something you can do essentially every day and not get tired of. Dinner rotates themes: Mexican, Asian, Mediterranean, Italian, seafood, and each theme had its winners. I was consistently impressed by the grilled fish options, and usually there was at least one of the chicken, pork, or beef dishes that was good. One strategy that I'd highly recommend is taking small portions portions of several things, go back to sit down, try everything, and then go back for what's actually good. Some dishes look incredible, but didn't taste great. Ceviche is the best example. We had some decent ceviche and some bad ceviche. You won't really know until you try it. There were a few standard options included every day for each meal as well. For breakfast, there was always yogurt and a fruit bar with oats, coconut flakes, seeds, and nuts to add on top. For lunch and dinner, there's always a full salad bar with various greens, vegetables, dressings, and toppings as well. When you sit down at the buffet, a server will come by to take your drink order. One small note, if you need a spoon, just grab one from the service stands. Even if you ask for one, it often doesn't make it to your table, and they don't keep utensils out for guests to grab, which I found a little inconvenient. Now let's talk drinks. There are 5 places to get drinks: the lobby bar, the buffet, the Luna/snack bar, the bar between the 2 main pools, and the adults only bar. From our experience, the lobby bar consistently made the best drinks. The biggest lesson that we learned is name the brand of liquor you want. The first few drinks we ordered had a very artificial, almost chemical taste, likely from the bottom shelf liquor and mixers. Once I started asking for specific brands, like a margarita with Jose Cuervo, the quality noticeably improved. They don't obviously have all the different brands, but if you can see it, they can use it. Personally, I highly recommend the jalapeno margarita and also just getting pineapple juice with Malibu. The beer was very light but drinkable. The wine was decent and consistent, but nothing special. So overall, what did I think? I would completely skip the Luna and the snack bar, but the buffet carried the experience. And once we figured out how to order the drinks well, we were happy. For the price point, food and drinks were a positive. Next up are the pools and the beach. There are 3 pools total. 2 of them are in the main pool area and are connected by a swim-up bar in the middle. And the third pool is the adults-only pool, and it sits upstairs above the gym and spa. Quick note on the gym. The gym is really nice. It has a lot of good equipment and also a good view of the sand. They have free weights, and they also have your regular pulleys and cardio equipment, and you just have to check in by signing your name on a sheet and noting when you get there and when you leave. All 3 pools have bar access. The 2 main pools share a central bar, and the adults only pool has its own swim-up bar with little stools. The 2 main pools aren't dramatically different from each other. You're mostly just choosing which side you want to sit on. The adults only pool does have an elevation advantage as far as views go, so you get a better view of the ocean, but honestly, you can see the beach and ocean clearly from any of the pools. We also found the music to be more bearable at the adults only pool. When we were there, it was in the mid-70s, and it felt a little too cool for us to spend a ton of time actually in the water. The pools themselves are large, and because the resort isn't huge, they never felt overcrowded. There was no chair reserving culture happening. We never had any trouble finding seats. Shade availability was decent, though not perfect. The adults only pool had better shaded spots overall. Towels are available through staff near the activity area. You just have to ask for them. Overall, the vibe at the pool was generally calm. Music plays most of the day, and while it's usually at a reasonable level, there were definitely moments where it got too loud, especially if you're trying to read. We actually moved a couple of times when we were reading, and they ended up pointing the speaker directly at us. Mexican bingo in particular gets loud. When that's happening, you can hear it pretty much anywhere in the resort. The adults only pool is a bit quieter on average, but the overall energy between the pools isn't dramatically different. It's mostly calm and just occasionally calm and loud. Now onto the beach. The beach is not swimmable, or at least not recommended for swimming. The waves get rough, there are warning flags out most of the time, and there are no lifeguards. We didn't end up going in the water at all. The sand is coarse, but it actually feels good under your feet. There wasn't much seaweed during our stay, though we did see a couple of dead pufferfish along the shoreline. The resort has some umbrellas and shaded structures set up along the beach area, kind of pergola style coverings, but this is definitely more of a look at the beach than use the beach type of situation. We still enjoyed walking along it and sitting out there to read, but if you're coming specifically to swim in the ocean, this may not be the right resort for you. I also have to mention there are vendors along the beach, and while they don't cross into the resort's designated area, they stay just outside of that invisible boundary, and there are usually a few people trying to sell bracelets, horse rides, or other items. They can be persistent, but after a couple of no's, they stop asking. So overall, the pool and the beach setup was really lovely. It was calm, spacious, and easy to enjoy. The only real interruptions to that calm were occasional loud music or organized activities, but it was usually easy to shift locations if you needed more quiet. Next up is service and staff. First impressions were great. Check-in was smooth, and we were the only people in line, and the 2 staff members who helped us were warm and spoke great English. They were also excited to hear us speaking a bit of Spanish, which was nice. So overall, it was a good start. At the buffet, service was generally positive. Once seated, staff would come by quickly for drink orders and clear plates regularly. As I mentioned earlier, they weren't always great about bringing specific utensils like spoons, but overall they were pretty attentive. I did have one negative interaction at the buffet. I accidentally dropped a piece of grilled fish without noticing, and a staff member called out to me sharply to point it out. That part is fair, it was my mistake. But instead of helping or explaining what to do, he just stood there, and when I couldn't figure out what to clean it up with, he just pointed at where to get paper towels and where to discard it. It felt unnecessarily cold and awkward, and that was definitely the most uncomfortable interaction I personally had on the trip. Aside from that one moment, most buffet staff were friendly. I even got complimented on my mustache a couple times, so that was nice. At the bars, service was generally quick. The drinks weren't always great unless you specified the brand, but the bartenders made what you asked for. And also, we didn't go frequently enough for anyone to remember us. There was one awkward situation I witnessed in the lobby bar. A guest who had just arrived asked the bartender to make whatever you want, and the bartender insisted that he had to order something specific. It created a tense and uncomfortable moment. It wasn't directed at me, but it stood out as not the most welcoming interaction, especially since the man ordering was clearly in such a happy mood to just have finally gotten there and be at the resort. As I mentioned before, housekeeping was excellent. Cleaning attendant was kind, helpful, and consistent. Also, they typically only provide one water bottle per day, which probably isn't enough. If you need more, it's easiest to ask housekeeping directly. A couple of times we asked the front desk for more waters, and they said they called housekeeping to get it done immediately, and nothing ever came. The activity staff seemed energetic and friendly, even though we didn't interact with them much. Tipping definitely seems to be common here. We tipped mostly at the end, so I can't personally say whether tipping improves service, though some reviews suggest that it could. Overall, I would describe the service as good enough. Most interactions were positive or neutral. There were two standout negative moments, one that happened to me and one that I witnessed, and they definitely stuck with me. But without those, this would have been a glowing service review. My final verdict on the service, mostly good, sometimes a little standoffish, but not too shabby. Also, I know it's not directly related to the resort, but I did want to briefly touch on the surrounding area and what you can do nearby. This resort is located in San José del Cabo, not Cabo San Lucas. Cabo San Lucas is about 30 minutes away and arguably the more popular of the areas. When we were there, we took Ubers to Cabo San Lucas a few times. One time we went whale watching, and that was incredible. We went several miles offshore, and the water was pretty choppy, so if you are prone to seasickness, that's something to consider. But the whales were unbelievably curious. We saw 3 up close, and at one point, one came within maybe 5 to 10 feet of my camera. It's something I'd absolutely recommend doing during whale season. We also spent some time in Cabo San Lucas itself. The energy there is very different, much more aggressive and tourist heavy. There are people constantly trying to sell you things like water taxis, cigars, medication, boat rides, marijuana, anything that you could imagine. And it definitely felt chaotic. That said, the marina area is cool. The beaches are beautiful. We visited Lover's Beach and saw the Arch, which are definitely iconic Cabo experiences. One day when the boats weren't running due to rough water, I actually entered Lover's Beach and Divorce Beach by climbing over the rocks near a resort that's a little bit south of those two, and I ended up completely alone on the other side. That was a pretty surreal moment for me, and we actually planned on going back so that we could do that together. But we saw from the boat ride that the beach that I had been alone on that day was filled with people, so we pivoted. Overall though, I'd say Cabo San Lucas wasn't really our vibe. We preferred San Jose del Cabo, felt a bit more laid back, more relaxed, and aligned with how we wanted to travel. We also had a special dinner at Flora Farms, which is a farm-to-table restaurant experience outside the resort. It's upscale, definitely more expensive than most places in the area, but it is absolutely stunning. The property is beautiful, and the experience felt completely different from the resort environment. We had pre-planned that, but generally, we didn't feel the need to leave the resort. We only left on 2 days out of our 10-night stay. I'm glad we explored, but I never felt stuck or bored staying on the property. That's one of the benefits of staying somewhere that isn't ultra luxury expensive. You don't feel bad if you step out and go to a special restaurant or go somewhere else for a while. It feels like you're engaging with the area a little bit more, and it doesn't feel bad because you're not spending so much just on the location you're staying. After 10 nights, I think I have the vibe of this place down. So now I'm going to answer, who is it for? This is for people who want a good deal and are able to take a couple things on the chin. If you're value oriented and you care more about stretching your travel budget than having a perfectly polished experience, this place makes a lot of sense. I think it's especially good for younger couples who want to travel more frequently without spending luxury prices. It's also good for older couples who have more time and would rather travel longer and spend less per trip. Now, who is this not for? I already alluded to this a little bit, but if you're someone who gets genuinely upset when service isn't warm, when food isn't excellent, or when a bathroom setup has flaws, this is not your place. If you have the budget to spend more and you're used to highly polished experiences with consistently excellent dining, top shelf drinks, you can get that elsewhere in Cabo. But this is not the place for that. This resort isn't trying to be luxury, it's trying to be affordable and functional, and I think it succeeds at that. I think we got our money's worth. It wasn't flawless, it wasn't luxury, but it was relaxing, comfortable, and overall very enjoyable. Under the right circumstances, I would definitely consider coming back here. But if I did that, I would come with the right expectations. And I think that's really the key to this place. Expectations. If you expect a solid, affordable, mostly calm, all-inclusive, in a beautiful part of Mexico, then you'll leave happy from this place. Now let me know if there's anything that I didn't cover that you want to hear about in the comments. I'd be happy to tack onto this video or respond to your comments. Making a decision like this can be tough, but hopefully I'll be able to help. Bye now.